A while back, I transcribed Jerry Garcia's solo on They Love Each Other from the Cornell 5877 show, and I was recently just going back over it with a student of mine, and the first couple licks of that solo are just so cool that I thought they merited a video of their own, so I'm going to go over them real quick here. I'll start by just playing this little portion of the solo, and then I'll go back and break it down a little bit. So for those of you following along at home, this solo on my recording of it, which I believe came from the official release of this show, starts at about 4 minutes, 16 seconds. Okay, so we've really got two licks going on here. One is sort of a big extended lick over the G chord, and then the next lick sort of covers the transition from the G chord to the C chord. So this first lick over the G chord does this thing that some people refer to as enclosures. Other people might refer to this as neighbor tones. What you're actually doing is taking the notes of a triad, in this case it's a G triad, and you're sort of surrounding them before you actually play the note, right? So you play, essentially you target your note of the triad, but you're going to precede that by playing the scale step above it, and then a half step below it, and then moving into the note itself. So the triad that we're outlining here is a G triad that looks like this. And it starts by approaching this first root note from a half step below. And then the next note we're targeting is the third, which falls right here. And the scale step above it is the fourth, just one fret above. So we're going to kind of surround it. And then the next note we're targeting is this D, the fifth. We're going to go to the scale step above, 2 frets above in this case. 1 fret below and into the note. Same thing targeting this G, scale step above, half step below, into the note. Then we're targeting this B, scale step above, this is the fourth, right? This is the third, and so the scale step above, that's the fourth. Half step below and into the note. And then, interestingly, Garcia chose to skip over the fifth here and go straight up to this upper root note here. Same thing, scale step above, half step below. And then he finally finishes it off by targeting this D, but he switches up the order and does the half step below first. And then finally landing on that chord tone. So the whole thing. So this next lick is just super cool. So now we're transitioning from the G chord to the C chord. And, you know, typically in this song, you're hearing kind of a G and then a G7, and then it resolves into the C. And I'd point out when it's going from G7 to C, what you're really hearing, the main thing that you're hearing is the sound of that F, which is the flatted seventh of the G chord. And then that's resolving down a half step to the E, which is the third of the C chord. Well, what Garcia is going to do here is sort of imply a couple of, I guess, what you would call chord substitutions here. So instead of G7, he implies a G13 chord, and then instead of C, he implies a C major 7 chord, and it just sounds really cool. So a G13, if you're familiar with it, this is a real common way to play a G13 chord. And then a C major 7, pretty much right in that same position, going to sound like that. And listen to the difference, right? If I just go G to G7 to C, but if I go G to G13 to C major 7, listen to how sweet this sounds. Way jazzier, right? So now, to play this lick, I'm going to take this G13 chord and I'm going to move it up an octave to the 15th fret. And in this kind of exact spot, right, you've got a little G triad right here, 15, 16, 17. In fact, you get this funny little X kind of pattern. And what he's going to do is come down the G major triad, and then kind of a little chromatic thing leading down to this F, which is the flatted 7th of the G. And ultimately where that's going to resolve is down one more fret to this E when the C chord comes up. But the C chord hasn't quite arrived, so from this flatted 7th, he jumps up to that E on the 17th fret, and this is where that G13 chord gets implied. And then chromatically goes down to that E to nail the chord change when it comes up to the C chord. And then, to imply that major 7th on the C, what he's going to do, like we've got a B over here, that would be the major 7th of the C, and he actually does this little kind of pre-bend thing, half step up, and then releases the bend down to that major 7th. And then he actually plays another lick over this C chord that really, again, kind of highlights that major 7th. I just think that's a super cool lick, and I love the idea of sort of implying chords that aren't necessarily even there just by playing a melody that, you know, sort of so strongly kind of outlines those chords.